Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog is entitled The Golden Calf. And for those of you who are kind of Old Testament oriented, you might remember the story of the golden calf. This is where Moses came off of Mount Sinai holding the Ten Commandments, or the Decalogue, in his hands. And he saw that the Israelites, while in his absence, had created a statue of a golden calf that they were now worshiping. And this obviously infuriated him, since this was a direct violation of the Lord's commandment not to have any gods before him. Now, the reason I started thinking about this was a very, very good friend of mine. His name is Darren Jones, and he watches this video and reads the blog. So we were Jungle Cruise skippers together a few lifetimes ago. Well, he continued with the Walt Disney Company. He's now in a senior management position. And the other day, he received a statue for his service by Disney itself. And it's a golden statue of Mickey as the wizard from Fantasia. So I congratulated him on finally achieving his Golden Calf Award. So, like I said, it started out somewhat humorous, but it got me thinking. In a sense, this sort of served as a muse to kind of keep the pagan concept going here. So, for those of you who've read the blog before in the past, you might remember that occasionally I use this sort of literary device of my law partner, the lieutenant colonel, and I, in our club together, smoking cigars and drinking whiskey and talking about things of national import. So I used the same structure for this blog this time, talking about the rise, if for lack of a better way of describing it, of paganism in our modern society. Now, this isn't something new, actually. It's been around for quite some time. Really started to develop during the late 19th century as the spiritualism movement began to develop both here and in England and to other parts of Europe as well. But it is interesting to me because there are some theological issues associated with this. Our own company here, the Artemis Defense Institute, is by definition named after a pagan god, okay? So paganism in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does open certain doors. And what I've seen is a devaluation of the divine in what could best be described as a evolution of science in a religious context, okay? We certainly saw this with COVID, right? And, with climate change and other things along those lines as well, where faith becomes an integral component in scientific exploration and a general dismissiveness of anything that is potentially theological. This is really troubling to me, because without having underlying girding of religiosity or even philosophical contemplation, you can potentially sow the seeds for your own destruction. Now, what is also interesting, and I do talk about it in the blog, is the commandment that you shall have no other gods before me. Well, that's generally been interpreted as I am the only God, okay? But that may not be an accurate interpretation. God is essentially saying, look, I'm the number one, okay, and you better worship me. But I am not suggesting necessarily that there aren't lesser celestial beings out there. This is really not well explored, but I think it's an interesting concept to look at. In any event, I do encourage you to read the blog. Hopefully it inspires some level of reflection. As always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.